Morning, good morning, good morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and let us be glad in it. Wonderful Monday morning. It's good to see you all this morning. Good morning to each and every one of you this morning. Want to do something a little different this week, and I'll see if we can pull this off. Want to look at the book of Hebrews, but I want to look at it in a broader sense and see if we can pull out some themes, some major themes that might be helpful to us as we then maybe delve deeper into it later on, maybe in the next week or so. But I'm just not sure. Not gotten clear direction on that yet. So I'm going to move in the direction that I was led to move, and then we will see where it goes from there. So today I want to kind of speak from this thought worth repeating. Um, this book of Hebrews, this letter to the Hebrews, it's a sermon. It's really what it is. It's a sermon to the people of Hebrews. These are second generation believers. Who have been taught, and the ministry has been shared with them by those who actually were living during the ministry of Jesus Christ. And so these were persons who were the second generation of those who were there. And so Hebrews 2:3 tells us that what makes us think we can escape if we ignore the great salvation that was first announced by the Lord Jesus himself and then delivered to us by those who heard him speak. And so these are persons who heard the message from those who came before, the generation before. And now these are second generation believers. As we read through Hebrews, if we go through Hebrews, you will discover that they were true believers. Hebrews 3:1 tells us, and so, dear brothers and sisters who belong to God and are partners with those called to heaven, think carefully about this Jesus whom we declare to be God's messenger and high priest. They believed. They were real believers. They were not just those who professed, but they were those who put into practice what they believed. These are persons, this is just second generation of believers who have been persecuted because of their faith. Hebrews 10:32-34, Hebrews 12:4, Hebrews 13:13 and 4 all remind us that they have been and are being persecuted. Hebrews 13, for instance, says, so let us go out to him outside the camp and bear the disgrace he bore. For this world is not our permanent home. We are looking forward to a home yet to come. So one of the things we understand about this group of people that this anonymous preacher is preaching to is that they are second generation believers. We also understand and we also know that they are true believers, that they believe, and because of what they believe, they are being persecuted for what they believe. Let me just back up to Hebrews 10, 32 and 34 says, think back on those early days when you first learned about Christ. It's Hebrews 10, 32, 34. Remember how you remained faithful, even though it meant terrible suffering. There it is. Sometimes you were exposed to public ridicule. You were beaten. And sometimes you helped others who were suffering the same things. You suffered along with those who were thrown into jail. And when all you owned was taken from you, you accepted it with joy. And you knew that there were better things waiting for you that will last forever. And it's a great reminder to all of us that as believers in Jesus Christ, we will suffer. We will be afflicted. We will go through some things. Don't consider it odd or strange when we are confronted by challenges, when things pop up in our lives, it's a part of life, and it's a part of this life. It's a part of the life for those who really are trying to live out this faith, who are not just professors, not just, when I mean professors, not just people who talk about it, but people who try to be about it. That there will be suffering in your life, and if Jesus suffered, here's the reality: we will suffer. So they've been persecuted because of their faith, but here is the thing I love about it: they have remained faithful. They've remained faithful to the needs of others who have also suffered. That's important. So watch this. I'm going through it, but I'm going to remain faithful to the people that I've been assigned to. Even though I'm catching it right now and I'm being persecuted and afflicted and suffering, I am going to remain faithful to the assignment that God has given me. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to run. I'm not just because I'm not, because things are not going well for me, not because things are working against me. I'm going to stay in the fight until God says for me to move, till God releases me from this assignment. But watch this. The other thing that they're facing, y'all, and this is the other thing that this preacher is preaching against in this book of Hebrews, I'm just giving it a broad overview, is that they were dealing now with false teachers, and they were being seduced away from the truth. They were being seduced away from the faith. They were following behind false doctrines. Hebrews 13:9 says, so do not be attracted by strange and new ideas. Your strength comes from God's grace, not from rules about food, which don't help those who follow them. So remember, these are second generation believers. Remember, the early church was made up of Jews primarily, and then Gentiles later. But remember, this early movement, this way, was made up of persons who were in the Jewish faith. This early movement was a Jewish sect that then began to spread out because of the persecution into Gentile nations, into Greek, into Roman nations. But initially it was a Jewish religion. And so a lot of the Jewish mandates were still being hung upon this religious, upon this faith, upon this movement. They were still people who believed that you had to be circumcised. There were still people who believed there were certain days that had to be honored. There were certain dietary restrictions. And this writer, this preacher, if you will, as they're transcribing his sermon, is reminding the people to be mindful of false teachers and false doctrine. Because what he did not want them to do is to fall for the trap of forgetting the true words that their first leaders had taught them. Remember, Hebrews 13:7, I'm giving a broad overview, said to them, remember your leaders who taught you the word of God. Think of all the good that has come from their lives and follow the example of their faith. That is the context. That is what's going on as this person, this preacher, begins to share with these believers, this second generation of believers. One, that they are second generation believers. Two, that they are true believers. Three, that they are suffering and being persecuted. Four, they have remained faithful despite the persecution, despite the afflictions in their life. And five, he is warning them against false doctrine. And number six, he is reminding them to not forget what they have learned. That is the broad overview. And so as we walk through the book of Hebrews, and I'm not going through it verse by verse, I'm going to pick out these certain pieces. I'm going to go through these scripture, these pieces in it that are very important to the main point that we just went through, that speaks to the larger context. I'm going to pull out content as we walk through the book of Hebrews that's going to speak to this context. But this week, what I'm going to do is I want to deal with the type of sermon this is. That's what I want to deal with this week. It's a sermon that is worth repeating. That's what I want to deal with this week. A sermon worth repeating. And the first thing that we're going to deal with on today in terms of what is worth repeating is this sense in which Jesus Christ is superior over the old Hebrew system of religion. That's worth repeating. And so this sermon is a sermon that gives us an opportunity of self-examination and evaluation. That Jesus is superior to the old system the old rituals, the old religious way. And so look, so let's just take it piece by piece. The first thing he tells us is that Jesus is better than the angels. That's in Hebrews 1:4. He says, this shows that the Son is far greater than the angels, just as the name God gave him is greater than their names. That Jesus is greater than the angels. Remember, in that system, angels were held in high esteem. They were held in high regard. And so what the preacher is reminding us of this morning is that Jesus is far superior than the angels. He's better than the angels. That's what he's saying. This word better is used 13 times in this book. 13 times. Every time he uses the word better, he's reminding us that Jesus is better than something else. Better, in this case, than the angels. Jesus is better. He's superior to the angels. That's what he's saying. That's the first thing we have to understand. But not only that, he says that Jesus gives us a better hope. That's in Hebrews 7:19. He says, for the law never made anything perfect. He's talking about the law. The law, remember, we talked about this last week. The law was week before last. The law was supposed to give us hope. But we are reminded in the book of Romans that the law could not give us that hope. The law could not save us. The law could not change us. The only thing that the law could do was show us where we were falling short. The only thing the law could do was show us where we were missing the mark. And look at what he says in Hebrews 7:19. For the law never made anything perfect. But now, he says, we have confidence in a better hope through which we draw near to God. The law kept us separated and alienated from God. But Paul, the writer of Hebrews, rather, not Paul, the writer of Hebrews, the preacher, is saying to us this morning, watch this, that the law never made anything perfect. It never corrected anything. But now we have confidence in a better hope. Who is the better hope? The better hope is Jesus Christ. And because of Jesus Christ, we now have access to God. We went through all of this in Romans. We now have access to God because of Jesus Christ and what he did. We now have peace with God. Y'all remember that? Because of what Jesus Christ did, the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross, we now can boldly approach God's throne because it's there we can find mercy that helps us in our time. That's in Hebrews 10, but we're going to get to that eventually. But the point of the matter is this: we have a better hope. Why? Because Jesus is the mediator. He is the go-between. He is the liaison of a better covenant, which was established on, watch this, better promises. That's in Hebrews 8:6. But now Jesus, watch this, our high priest, has been given a ministry that is far superior to the old priesthood. Are y'all getting this thing? For he is the one who mediates for us a far better covenant with God based on better promises. There's a better promise. There's a better covenant, a newer covenant. And the preacher, the writer of Hebrews is reminding this second generation believers, and indeed reminds all of us, that if we ever attempted to go back to the law, ever attempted to go back to that legalistic way, he's reminding us that there is a better covenant. It's a better covenant. And that better covenant is based on better promises. And the better promise is that we were made righteous. We were imputed. Remember this now from Romans. Imputed righteousness, right? Because of the work of Jesus Christ. And now we are declared righteous. And the sins that we committed were no longer imparted upon us or counted against us. And the better covenant is now that we are justified by grace. Watch this, through faith, if we just believe. There's a better covenant that we have access to. That's what he's saying to us on today, beloved. And so that's what I wanted to bring to our attention and to our remembrance. But he doesn't stop there, because he also talks about this other word that's been repeated throughout the book of Hebrews, and that word is perfect. That is also mentioned 14 times in the book of Hebrews. It means a perfect standing. You see how this stuff connects? It is a perfect standing before God. This perfection could never be accomplished by by the Levitical priesthood. It could never be established or accomplished by the law. Hebrews 7:19 tells us that. It says, for the law never made anything. We just talked about it. 7:11 says to us, if the priesthood of Levi on which the law was based could have achieved the perfection God intended, why did God need to establish a different priesthood with a priesthood in the order of Melchizedek instead of the order of Levi and Aaron? And it's so interesting that we're in Sunday school now studying about Levi and Aaron and this priesthood that was established to watch over the tabernacle and to have charge over the temple. But that was not able to achieve the perfection of God. And it gives us the ability to stand before God without spot or without wrinkle and blameless. It was not able to do that. It was not able to accomplish that. And so the writer of Hebrews says to us, listen, God has taken care of it. He has taken care of it and uses this word perfect. Watch this. Nor could the blood of animal sacrifice achieve it. Hebrews 10:1 said the old system under the law of Moses was only a shadow, a dim preview of the good things to come, not the good things themselves. The sacrifices under that system were repeated, watch this, over and over again, year after year, but they were never able to provide perfect cleansing for those who came to worship. Listen, it did not matter how many animals they killed. It did not matter how many years, how many times they performed that ritual and that sacrifice. It was not able to provide the cleansing, the perfect cleansing that we needed. But how many of you know that through the blood of Jesus Christ, through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, he died once and for all. We're going to deal with that at some point. He died once and for all. And because he died once and for all, that is what gave us standing before God. And we call that, y'all, justification. Y'all see how this thing is connected? And we have been perfected forever then that are sanctified. Hebrews 10:14, for by that one offering, he forever made perfect those who are being made holy. And that idiom, being made holy, simply means those who are being sanctified. And so those who are being made more and more like Christ, those who are being made holy. Again, we connected this to Romans, that those old systems, what he's reminding us this morning, and we're going to learn this week, is that Jesus is better. He was far superior. And that is the whole gist of the book of Hebrews, that Jesus was perfect. Jesus was better than. He was perfect in his presentation, in his sacrifice. And so I love the way the writer and the preacher contrast the Old Testament system, the Hebrew system, with the New Testament ministry of Jesus Christ, which is the ministry of grace. And I hope you all understand that it's because of grace that we have been saved. It's because of grace that we have been sanctified. It's because of grace that we have been made new. And we are new creations. And old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. It's because of grace, not some religious system, not some ritual, some sprinkling of blood on the altar. No, that is not what it was able to cleanse us and to free us from sin. It was the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And so this word perfect is lifted 14 times. And it simply means, again, to be made perfect before God, to be standing before God. But watch this. Here's the third piece that is so critical. And then we're done for the day. It's so critical to our understanding of this book. That word is eternal. That Christ is the author of eternal salvation. Hebrews 5:9 says it this way. In this way, God qualified him as a perfect high priest, and he became the source, here it is, of eternal salvation for all those who obey him. Watch this. Through his death, watch this. Not only is there eternal salvation, but through his death, we have obtained eternal redemption. Watch this. Hebrews 9:12 says it this way. He says it this way: with his own blood, not the blood of goats and calves, he entered the most holy place once for all and secured our redemption forever. That's why we're able to say, y'all, when people ask us, you're able to say, I'm redeemed. I've been bought with a price, and Jesus has saved my life. He turned my whole life around. Redemption. We have been redeemed. Jesus paid it all. and all to him we owe. It's an eternal salvation, which leads to eternal redemption. And then watch this. He then shares with the believers the promise, watch this, of an eternal inheritance. That's in Hebrews 9 and 15. And we're gonna walk through all of it, y'all, because I want you all to get this. I want you all to see what is ours to obtain and ours to grasp and to hold on to. I've been waiting. I could not wait. And I'm doing it now over the next couple of weeks. Why? Because as we walk into Advent, as we walk into this season of anticipation and expectation, I want you to understand the gravitas of what we are waiting on. I want you to understand the gravitas and the importance of what he came for and what he came to do. It's not about those gifts under the tree. It's not about us going into debt. This thing is deeper than that. In fact, watch this, y'all. Those things are only temporal. What he came to bring to us and provide for us is eternal. Lord have mercy. I hope we get that, y'all. And I want what's eternal. I'm trying to hold on to what's eternal because I understand, y'all, that in this life are temporal things, temporal relationships, temporal gifts, temporal understanding. These things are fleeting and transiting and come and they go. People come and go. Situations and circumstances come and go. But I want that which is eternal. That's what I'm holding on to. That's what I'm looking forward to. That which is eternal. That which cannot be brought. That which cannot be contaminated by human imagination and human hand and human touch. That's what I'm after. And that is my prayer, my hope for you all, that as we walk through this, you will grasp anew the significance and the nuance of what God has done on our behalf. And I thank God for the book of Hebrews. I thank God for the writer. I'm thanking God for these second generation believers who needed to be reminded. Why? Because we need to be reminded as well that this stuff soon will pass away. That we're nothing more than pilgrims here, y'all, but there is something that is eternal. The promise of the eternal inheritance. Look at this, 9 and 15. That is why he is the one, Jesus Christ, who mediates a new covenant between God and people, so that all who are called can receive the eternal inheritance God has promised them. For Christ died to set them free. Here it is, from the penalties of sins they had committed under that first covenant. Remember, we talked about there's a better covenant. And I keep saying Paul, this writer of Hebrews, this preacher is reminding us today of the promise of eternal inheritance. So look at it. Watch it, y'all. Look at the levels to this. There are levels to this. He is the author of eternal salvation. Hebrews 5 and 9. He is the one through whom we obtain eternal redemption. Hebrews 9 and 12. And then watch this. He is the one in whom we share the promise of eternal inheritance. Hebrews 9 and 15. And watch this, y'all. I love it. His throne is forever, and he is a priest forever. Here it is, that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. That's Hebrews 13 and 8. And I love that, y'all. I love that, y'all. So when you combine these three pieces, these three elements, if you will, these three important words, these words are better and perfect and eternal. Here is what you get. You discover that Jesus Christ and the Christian life, that he gives us better because these blessings, watch this, are eternal. And they give us, watch this, perfect standing before God. And the religious system that was under the Mosaic law couldn't do it, y'all. All of the rules and the regulations that we create can't do it, y'all. All of that stuff, y'all, falls short of what he did once and for all. The religious system under Mosaic law was imperfect, and so are our rules. So are our regulations. They're imperfect because it cannot accomplish what Jesus Christ did once and for all. And that redemption, that redeeming of our lives from sin, is eternal. And so here's the danger, y'all. This is why the book of Hebrews is so important. Because as second generation believers, Here is the danger they faced. Remember, we talked about it. They were the ones who had received the message from the generation before. They were considered true believers, right? They were ones who were being persecuted because of their faith and because of their belief. But because of the persecution, or I should say, despite the persecution, they never stopped being faithful. They remained faithful. So part of this letter is about encouragement, and part of this letter is about exhortation. We'll get to that in the coming days, right? They were being persecuted, but here's the other part of it. They were being seduced by the false doctrines. And here's the danger, y'all. Because if we're not careful, as believers, we can become, we can find ourselves at this place of being at a standstill. If we're not careful, we can be in danger. We can fall in danger of going backwards. That's the danger. If we are not secure in what we believe, if we don't have a firm foundation in the foundation of our faith, in the fact that Jesus, as we talked about it a moment ago, is the author of eternal salvation, and that this Jesus is the one through whom we've obtained eternal redemption. And through this Jesus, we have the promise of eternal inheritance. We will allow the things of this life to cause us to stand still, and even more dangerously, to cause us to turn back, to turn our backs on the faith, to give up on the assembling of ourselves. That is called apostasy. That is called a great falling away. That is what that is called. The Bible tells us that there will be times where people will fall away, but here it is. We have to stand firm on what we believe, that we have been redeemed and we have been granted the promise of an eternal inheritance. And that is what this preacher is seeking to remind this generation of believers about. That even if you're persecuted, still understand that you are saved. And here's the piece, y'all. Here's the piece. Just because we are saved, just because we've been redeemed, just because we have this gift of eternal inheritance does not mean that we will not go through things in this life. I said it in the beginning. I'm going to say it again, because this is what I want you to do. I want us to be able to stand and endure even in the midst of our suffering. That's what he's trying to do here. And so as he's repeating this message that's worth repeating, he's really giving us an opportunity to evaluate, right? To examine the life of Jesus and the work of Jesus over and against the old system. And the argument he's making is that Jesus is better. The argument he's making is that where the law and the Levitical priesthood could not put us in perfect standing, Jesus Christ could. Here's the argument he's making, and it's worth repeating over and over again, that the work that Jesus did was permanent work. That the work of the priests, the work of the Levites was a temporary thing. Every year they had to do Yom Kippur. In fact, the Jews are still doing Yom Kippur every year because it's temporary, it's fleeting. But Jesus, what he did it once and for all. And that is why we celebrate, and that is why we rejoice. And we don't want to fall to the tragedy of standing still spiritually and fall to the danger of going backwards, and even for some of them forsaking regular worship. Here it is, y'all. Hebrews 10:12. Y'all think I'm making up stuff. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Don't allow what we see, which is temporary, to keep us from experiencing and receiving that which is eternal. Don't you allow this illusion to keep you from grabbing and grasping that which is real. That's what he's saying. That's all he's saying, y'all. And don't allow it to stop you from making spiritual progress. Hebrews 6:1. So let us not stop going over the basic teachings about Christ again and again. Let us go on instead and become mature in our understanding. Surely we don't need to start again with the fundamental importance of repenting from evil deeds and placing our faith in God. Listen, y'all, you already got it. That's all I want to say. You got the foundation. You got all you need. Stand on what you need. Listen, It's always worth repeating. We need to be reminded of it over and over again. Look, yo, we already got it. God already gave it to us, and it's worth repeating. And don't you allow anything or anybody to stop you from receiving and obtaining that which God has already promised you. Salvation, eternal life, eternal inheritance. Don't let anybody preach and teach you a message that causes your progress to come to a standstill, that causes you to turn back. Don't you allow any persecution, any stress, any striving, any contention to stop you from believing what you believe and what you know. You hold firm to what you know. That because of what Jesus did, you can now stand and have perfect standing before God. That what you have now is eternal. And that what Jesus brings to the table, what Jesus brings is far better than any other system, any other doctrine, any other belief. I just wanted to give you that brief overview, y'all, because we have to have that. And so I'm gonna be doing brief overviews all this week, and then I'm gonna dig into some deeper passages, probably over the next couple of weeks before we get into this Advent season. And then once we get into Advent, I'm back at the Christian calendar, and I'm gonna follow that thing all the way through to the new year. Then we will see what will come out of that. But again, I want to remind all of us that don't you let anybody deceive you. Jesus, the Christ, is better. His sacrifice was better. His ministry was better. The work that he did was better. He was better than angels. He gives us a better hope. He's a better mediator of a better covenant, which provides for us better promises, much better than the Mosaic law, much better than the laws, much better than any Levitical practice or priesthood. He is the better portion. And not only that, y'all, his promises are eternal. And because of that, we can stand, we have perfect standing, rather, in the presence of God. We learned that in Romans. We're going to continue that in the book of Hebrews. And it's my prayer that as we continue to do that, that your faith, will be strengthened. Listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. We're at that moment. And so we got to go. We got to say goodbye for today. But we're praying that the Lord will bless you and keep you, that the Lord will make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, that the Lord will lift his countenance upon each and every one of you, that he will grant you his peace. God bless you. May heaven continue to smile upon you. And if it be God's will, we'll see you on tomorrow. God bless you. We'll talk soon.